Hello, my name is Nez, and this is the Gamer Talks movie show. The first episode of this thing I'm trying, where I basically ramble about movies. The first movie I'm going to review is Kingsman: The Secret Service, directed by Matthew Vaughn, and that came out in 2014, so 2 years ago. And the reason I'm reviewing that movie right now is because I just rewatched it like for the fourth time yesterday, and with a friend. And the first part of this review won't contain spoilers, so even if you haven't seen this movie, that's okay, you can still listen in. And then at some point I will go into more specific points, and then I'll warn you about, spoilers and all that. So be aware. And the footage you're now seeing is some random gameplay from Rainbow Six Siege that I decided to pick for this, mostly because it is called the Gamer Talks movies, so I'm a gamer. I love movies and video games, and this is my way of putting those two kind of together. And because I didn't want to really actually go and edit real footage from the movies, mostly because I'm also avoiding copyright strikes by doing it this way. So it's just something you can watch. It's random gameplay I recorded a month ago. And anyway, yeah. I'm going to come out and say that I really, really like the Kingsman movie. When it came out, I first saw some reviews of it, and it's pretty good. And everyone's saying it was a ton of fun, and I went to see it, and I fell in love with the movie. It's crazy, it's stupid, and well, it's not stupid, but it's weird. My friend that I watched it with last night described it as maybe the second weirdest movie she has ever seen, which I am not surprised by, because there are some scenes, or a lot of scenes, that are pretty outrageous and just odd, and yeah. So if you don't know, Kingsman is basically a kind of a love letter to old spy movies, mostly the James Bond movies. They even reference James Bond in the movie even a couple of times. Basically, I watched the behind the scenes, and the director Matthew Vaughn said that he didn't like how these days, especially the Bond films, are way more serious than they used to be, and he loves the kind of old, more silly, light-hearted, humorous old spy movies. So he wanted to make a movie that was kind of a mix, of that, and kind of not a parody exactly, but more taking things in those older James Bond and other spy kind of parody movies or whatever, and putting them into this, and changing things around, making it a way more violent version of those movies, but still having the elements that you can still recognize. For example, the weird henchman with the the odd job or the Jaws in this movie. It's this Gazelle. I'm not sure if I remember her name right. This woman who has basically amputated legs, and instead of her normal legs, she has these weird blades as kind of legs, and that's her gimmick. And this movie is about Eggsy, a character, a Londoner, from South London, a young boy who has a rough time. He lives in a kind of poor neighborhood, has a very abusive stepfather. Things are things are not just good. He has lost his real father. And then comes along this secret agent, Harry Hart, codenamed Galahad, who trains him to be a Kingsman. That's basically it. And then there's like Samuel L. Jackson plays the villain, Richard Valentine anyway, and he is this kind of like Steve Jobs, internet genius person, you know, in lead of this big company like Valentine Corporation, and he has this evil master plan that I won't spoil because it's kind of a big plot in the movie, so I won't go into that just yet. Later I'm going to talk about more why I really love the character of Valentine, or at least his plan. And yeah, so this movie not only did, in my opinion, have a really good cast. I really liked the actor who played Eggsy. Yes, I really liked Taron Egerton. I'm sorry, Egerton. Yeah. Anyway, he played Gary Eggsy Unwin, who was the main character, and I really liked him. He really sold the whole kind of like street kid turns into a gentleman spy kind of thing, and I really liked him. I haven't seen him. He was a very unknown actor. I don't think he had been in any other movie before this, or at least not like known. And this was like a first big role, and I really liked him. And now he's in the new movie, like some eagle movie, I don't know, some ski jumping movie. I can't remember the name. I'll put the title of that movie in the video. But yeah, I really liked him. And then Colin Firth, who played Harry Hart, was excellent. Really charismatic, and also really good in his action scenes, because he actually did most of his real stunts. Like the action scenes, he did those choreographs, and he was I really bought him in, like, as this kind of like Bond-esque gentleman spy who had the authority. Like he's a little bit older, but he still managed to do those fighting scenes really well. Then there's obviously Samuel L. Jackson as the villain. I really liked him. I love Samuel L. Jackson. He's one of my favorite actors, really. Actually, I mean, who doesn't love him? But this is a very different kind of role for him. He wasn't like some badass, you know, he wasn't some badass who screams a lot and yells a lot. He was this more nerdy character with a lisp, which was really weird at first, but I kind of understood. Samuel L. Jackson had this actual reasoning why he chose to have his character to have a lisp. And then you had other actors like Michael Caine as Arthur, the leader of Kingsman, or the Kingsmen. You even had Mark Hamill in a very, like, a little small role in the movie, which was pretty incredible. I didn't recognize him the first time I saw him in the movie. I don't think many people do, because he hasn't been in a lot of movies after Star Wars. So it was really funny to watch the behind the scenes, because the director and the writer and everyone was like basically a fanboy for Mark Hamill. They were talking about, like, oh my god, it was so great to have Luke Skywalker, and they were all like just going nerdgasming all over. It's pretty funny, because like you don't normally think, like, you know, the director is that kind of person who would like kind of like fanboy one of his actors, you know, like really that's something that I found to be quite amusing. Then you have people like Mark Strong as Merlin in this movie, who usually I think plays villains. I haven't seen in many other movies. I can't recall other than Sherlock, the Robert Downey Jr. one. And I really liked his character as well. He wasn't a bad guy in this, and I really liked his character as well. Then one of my favorites was probably also Sophie Cookson, who played Roxy, and kind of like a side character, female friend for Eggsy, the main character, but she wasn't a forced romantic interest, which I really liked, and she was the kind of, like, you could say almost strong female character, but she wasn't it also wasn't like too on the nose. Like, it wasn't like, oh, look at me, I'm better than all the guys. Like, she wasn't like constantly saying things about how she's a woman, like she could have been cast as a guy and it wouldn't have pretty much made any difference to the actual plot or her dialogue. She didn't really make any even like references to being a woman, which I really liked, and I thought her character was like fun and a really good, like nice kind of like companion, a platonic companion to Eggsy. So yeah, this movie had a good cast, good director, the director of Kick-Ass, and I think maybe X-Men. Yeah, I think X-Men First Class was probably also what Matthew Vaughn's director. And this movie has some pretty insane action scenes. And also, surprisingly, I really liked the music in this movie. I have listened to the soundtrack of this movie after just like casually like working out or either just walking, and like just really there are some amazing pieces of soundtrack in this movie that really added something to the action scenes, and even the more quiet scenes, and yeah, I really love that. So before I go into spoilers, I would just like to I guess make a conclusion. And yeah, this is the kind of movie that I could almost call a guilty pleasure. It's kind of dumb and just over the top, and really it's not the kind of like you would watch with your parents or like even like beach, like, oh, this is the best movie. It won't be remembered as a classic, I don't think, but it's just really fun. Like, that's the best word I can use to describe it, and that's a really, doesn't really say much what is fun, but it's the, I would compare it to almost Pacific Rim or something like that. Like, it's the story wise, and like, it's not a crazy, it's not, I wouldn't necessarily even call it a good movie. I think it is a good movie, but it definitely isn't for everyone. But it's just so, I don't know, it's just entertaining, and that's the best way I can. And it's well shot. I think the acting is good. The story is actually surprisingly good, and I'll go into that a little bit more later. And the music is good, and the action scenes are great, and like, so it's really entertaining. And I won't give it a score because I don't really like the idea of scores, but I'll just say that yes, I do recommend if you're a fan of the older James Bond movies, or even if you're a fan of like current James Bond movies, but kind of like just like spies and gadgets and that stuff, and just like you're a fan of good action and you are not terrified of blood and violence, because this movie has some pretty weird or pretty pretty graphic violence. So if you're not terrified by that and you just want something to watch, then yeah, I would recommend this movie. So now, spoiler warning, spoiler warning. If you haven't seen this movie, and if my rambling convinced you to maybe be interested in it, then don't listen or watch this, because I'm going to go into spoilers. And first of all, I'm going to go into one of my favorite scenes is, and that's the skydiving sequence. So there's a scene in the movie where they basically have to train like the people who are the recruits for the Kingsman program or the service. They have to do a skydive as part of their training, and the trick is that they're then told that one of them doesn't have a parachute. Well, in the end it turns out that yes, actually all of them had parachutes, but it was basically just a trick to fool them into trying to think and, you know, actually do teamwork. And it's maybe one of the most suspenseful scenes I've seen in a long time, because not only is the music in that particular scene it's my favorite piece of music from the film. It really adds to the suspense, and it's just really well made. I watched the behind the scenes, and it wasn't shot on like green screen or something. It was like actually they had actors, or well, stuntmen, but still people actually skydiving and doing all the tricks and like all those things that you see in the movie. They're actually like they did that. They actually jumped out of a plane and did those things, and obviously some of the things it wasn't the actual actors that did that. So it was stuntmen, and then they in some shots replaced the faces of the actors. And it was, and it's completely understandable why, because obviously, like you need to have like people who are actually trained to, like who are professionals at, you know, skydiving or halo jumping to be more accurate. And well, it was a really good scene. Then other one of my favorites, a crazy scene, was that everyone who has seen the movie knows about, is the church scene with Freebird playing in the background. Like holy shit, the amount of craziness in that scene. Like I remember my friend was like, "What the fuck is going on? Like what is happening?" when the scene played, and I was like just laughing my ass off because I knew what was happening. I was like, I had seen the movie like 3 times at least before, so I was like, I was really enjoying that. And my friend was like, "What the fuck? What is this? This is so insane." And it is like, it's just Colin. Sorry about that. There was an explosion. There. Anyway. So, like Colin Firth, who plays Harry Hort, aka Galahad, basically is in a hate church in Kentucky, and then everyone just starts killing each other because Samuel L. Jackson, his plan is to have these SIM cards that somehow with these kind of like transmitted waves turn people aggressive. I'm not sure how scientifically accurate that is, like how it's probably actually possible to do that. I'm not sure. Maybe it is. I don't think so. I mean, I like technically maybe in some ways. Anyway, I'm not going to go into it, but yeah, like so he uses the church as a test, and Colin Firth is in there, and then everyone just kills each other, and it's fucking glorious. It's it's so weird. It's so outrageous. It's so insane, but it works. And it's just fun to see people stabbing each other with crosses. Fucking sorry. I hate when I'm constantly getting interrupted. Anyway, I'm not going to cut this. Fuck this. Fuck editing. And yeah, it's crazy. And one other thing that I mentioned earlier is that I really liked the idea for the villain in this movie, Valentine, played by Samuel L. Jackson, because his plan is basically that we as humans are destroying the planet because, you know, we're causing global warming, and there's basically no way to stop it if we don't reduce the population of the planet. And his way of doing that is having everyone kill each other with the SIM cards I mentioned earlier. And then, you know, some people that choose to be a part of this plan are saved. They have these implants that basically protect you from the effect of the SIM cards, and those people are chosen for the future, the new world, basically. And I love it because it, in a weird, twisted way, it makes sense, and you can kind of understand where he's coming from, and that's really a sign of a good villain. A good villain is when you can actually kind of understand the motivation. Like, it's not just, oh, I'm a bad guy, I want to destroy the world or conquer the world. Like, no, he has an actual pretty, like, in a way, good. He's actually trying to save the planet. It's just that the way he's doing that is really unethical, and probably not the right way. But when you think about it, like, yeah, population is a big problem. Like, there's way too many people. Like, if you really want to think about it that way, you know, like, basically one of the ways to save Earth would be to reduce population. That's the only problem. How do you do that? And, you know, killing everyone is, you know, one way, but it's not the right way, because then you have the ethical problem of, okay, who gets to be chosen for the next new world, basically. And in this case, it's the privileged, it's the rich people, it's the, you know, the politicians, you know, and everyone else, basically all the normal people, you know, the lower class, so to say, you know, they don't get picked, they die because, you know, they're not good enough. And that's kind of the problem. That's kind of like, it's genius, because it's like you could really see that kind of like someone would think, like, if they were insane enough, they would think this way, maybe. And they're, you know, I really liked that part of the movie, and that's kind of like that's also one of the reasons I like this movie. Like, it's kind of dumb in places. I mean, it has a scene where people's head explode, and it's fireworks, and that's like something that you wouldn't really think of as being like a serious movie, but at the same time it has these themes and like these ideas of, you know, like actual problems in the, you know, these ethical problems, and that's something I really like. It's this right blend of like realism with this really silly, you know, over the top stuff. And then the last thing I want to just quickly discuss is, before I stop this review and this rambling, is the princess joke. And if you don't know what that is, basically it was a joke that created some controversy around the movie, as if the church scene wasn't enough. And basically in the end you have this Swedish princess, the Swedish princess who's not the, doesn't have the real name as like the same name as the real Swedish princess, but she basically offers, she's captured by the villain, and she offers Eggsy that, basically if you save the world, you can fuck me in the ass. And that's kind of the joke. And some people weren't too happy with that. They thought, they said, that objectifies women, that basically makes her character be into a physical, like a prize, like a trophy for the character of Eggsy. Just like, you saved me, or you saved, like she's the typical, damsel in distress, and then the reward for the main character is sex. And that's kind of like, questionable. And I completely, I'm not going to go on a, like, I'm not going to, there are some people like, oh fuck, fuck the feminists for, thinking that, I'm not gonna, one of those people. And they actually censored that scene, like that joke. They cut out the part where she says, if you say the word, we can do it in the asshole. They cut out that scene. From, I think, the American version at least. I'm not sure which versions. Thankfully, they didn't cut it from the Finnish. I'm from Finland, so they didn't cut it from the Finnish Blu-ray or DVD version. But I think it's just so odd. Really, I really don't agree with censoring that part or cutting that out, because yeah, I get the point that it's kind of like questionable in today's age. But first of all, it's a joke, and people shouldn't really take always everything so seriously, especially in a movie like this. And second, once again, it's kind of like I said, it's not a parody of James Bond movies, but it kind of is. And that joke is parodying the whole idea of the older James Bond movies, where at the end James Bond always gets the girl, and almost so many James Bond movies end with basically James Bond having sex with the Bond girl in the movie. And so this joke was basically just taking that out, and making fun of it. Basically, like making a joke out of that trope in the old. Like I said, this is a kind of a love letter, but also kind of a parody of the older Bond movies. So that's why I think it's kind of stupid to get, mad about that joke. Like, if I understand why, once again. But you have to take in the context of the movie. You have to really think about what kind of movie it is, why, what's the reasoning for the joke. But yeah, that's my conclusion on this has gone on for way too long. Again, I'm sorry for my rambling. English isn't my first language, and this is my first time trying. I might try to cut out some parts of this. But I hoped you liked this. If you did, please, whatever, I'm going to do more videos probably in the future, so expect those. I'm going to do about the reviews of movies, maybe some TV shows, like maybe when Game of Thrones comes back up, season 5, I'm going to do reviews of all the episodes for that, probably. And just like random topics, choosing that are somehow related to movies, and like discussions and everything. So yeah, hope you like this, and see you next time.